All right. Well, as promised, we're 3 minutes in. We are going to go ahead and get kicked off. For those who are able to join and for those that are viewing after the fact, Strickland Tutor from Workiz, EVP of Revenue. And I'm absolutely thrilled about this webinar. We've got some great friends and big brains on the call. We've got our good friends from Voda Cleaning and Restoration. So we've got our CEO, Dan Claps, and CMO, Christian Betancourt. I'll give a quick introduction of myself. Strick for short. I've had the privilege of serving the trades and tradespeople for a little over 25 years in a few different roles. Played the role of EVP revenue over at Workiz for the last 2 years as of this month. And we have a really exciting agenda for the webinar. Before we get into it, I'll give the mic over to Dan and Christian to say hello, maybe give a warm welcome, and then we'll jump right into the content.
Wasn't sure who was going first there, Christian. Hello, everyone. Nice to it was a game of chicken, huh? Nice to virtually meet everyone. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to learn and grow your business. I'm sure there's a lot of things you could be doing right now in your business. So we appreciate the time to help you leave this with 1 or 2 actionable items. I am Dan Claps, CEO of Voda Cleaning and Restoration. We're a cleaning and restoration brand around the country in about 33 states and about almost 300 markets. We're a franchise company, and I have been in the home services space for a couple of years now, in the franchise space for about 12 years, and very excited to talk with all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks again for taking the time. I'm Christian Betancourt. I serve as Voda's Chief Marketing Officer. Really been with Dan and the rest of our leadership team from our early beginnings of starting out and having a 1-unit business and then turning it into a nationwide cleaning and restoration franchise that we'll talk about. Really, my focus is driving consumer experience, and both on the local side, but also helping our operations team with partner programs, and then also developing and finding more great operators and franchisees through our marketing efforts. At the end of the day, everything is a customer experience. And so really excited to talk to you today about kind of how we use Workiz and how we have some learnings and best practices from over the last 3 years that really has allowed us to create a great customer experience for what is our owners, customers at the local level.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Christian. And just a little bit of background. One of the impetuses for us creating this webinar is we've had the privilege of being partners with Voda for the last 3 years or so. We've learned so much from each other, and there were enough learnings that it made sense to pull this together. So you can think about this format as a bit of a fireside chat. We've got some really meaty topics that we're going to talk about, but as you can see on the slide there, the theme is trapped by success, how to scale past the danger zone. And I think that we can probably all reflect on whether it's our own business or working with clients. You see a business reach a state of maturity where they are healthy and they are excited and challenged at the same time as it relates to scaling that business, not breaking what's working. And so we've come up with a handful of topics that I'm going to be going through with Dan and Christian, and they've got some amazing insights they're going to be able to share. So, but again, echoing Dan's comments, thank you to everybody for making time. We know that your days are very busy. Quickly, housekeeping, just to level set on expectations. It's scheduled for about 45 minutes. We'll be disciplined about the time, make sure that we end on time. There's a chat bot that's located on the right where you're welcome to post questions. If we don't get to them immediately, we'll certainly make sure we respond to all of them before the end of the call today. The recording will be emailed out within the next 24 hours. So those that have registered and maybe aren't able to attend will be able to view it after the fact. We will be at least having one live poll. So hands on keyboards, if you're able to provide some feedback to guide the conversation. And most exciting, we have a giveaway at the end, some thought leadership sharing, but please stay on the call. And those that are still on the call at the end will be excited to share out some additional business tools. All right, so getting us kicked off. this is something that I think we all know to be true. Growing a home service team is a double-edged sword. There are challenges and opportunities every single day. Maybe I'll start with Dan on this, but Dan, you've been a great person for me to learn from, and also a great storyteller. So I'm curious to know how you kind of react to that statement. You know, growing a home service team is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's a great thing to think about. My thought on home services has always been a stance of, we're in the people business. You have to be a people person. You have to hire people as much as you can. Someone that enjoys interact with the homeowner. I think that the most important part of your business is growing that team that's going to interface and interact with the customer. And when I think of it as a double-edged sword, when you're growing that team, you have to be able to know that you can trust them and rely on them to go service the customer and do a great job. But it's also a double-edged sword because it's a little bit of letting go of control. I see a lot of owners, they have trouble. They want to build a team. They do everything that they heard, Tommy Mello say on a podcast or they read in a book. But when the rubber meets the road and it really becomes time to trust their team and let go and empower them, they might pull back the control. And so to me, growing a home service team, you have to do all these things to get them to do well and win, but you then also have to be able to give up the control. You can't have both. You can't control and empower. You typically have to empower and let go, and that can be challenging.
Yeah, I love that. And whether it's Tommy over at A1 or the team from Voda on the call today, one of the things, and this is actually from a LinkedIn post this morning from Dan, so it's hot off the press, but as you're thinking about scaling and building that team, 1A player can do the work of 3B players. And so holding that high bar and not giving up on what excellence looks like every day. So Dan, like and respond to your post and appreciate the social sharing. Free plug. Christian, anything to add to this slide?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, growth creates complexity. I think that's an understatement. Growth is exciting, but with every new truck, with every new technician, with every new territory, it adds complexity. And so now suddenly scheduling gets harder, communication gets messier. The owner itself can't touch every job anymore. And so that's why it is a double-edged sword, because with more opportunity becomes more operational pressure, and you're entering into places that you haven't been before. And then you have to kind of weigh, and I know we're going to talk a lot more about this, but you have to weigh, the need that you perceive you have with headcount, and we all know headcount is expensive, to how can you leverage technology and automation and things to help scale. And that's kind of goes to the concept of kind of the owner bottleneck, and how do you overcome that?
Absolutely. And we're going to dig into some very specific challenges along the way as we progress through the deck. But truer words never spoken. Thank you, gentlemen. Time for a quick poll. So this is where we're going to test technology. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, thank you for your patience. All right, Dan and Christian, let me know if you guys can see that poll up here. And it may just be for the attendees.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. And we'll give it just a few minutes for folks to respond.
Gotta love a good poll. Insights from the crowd.
Awesome. So the results are starting to roll in. The question was, just for those that might not be able to see, what is the biggest challenge growing your business? And the options were concerned about readiness to scale, and that specifically as it relates to processes, systems, technology tools, The other option was finding skilled labor. And then we also had availability to capital for growth. So we've got pretty good results at this point so far. In terms of what we're seeing, 55% of the respondents say that readiness to scale, questions about processes, systems, maybe the state of maturity and health of the business. 36 suggested that finding skilled labor is a challenge, and we know that that is a real problem, regardless of what vertical trade you may serve in the home services space. And then at least 10% responding that availability to capital for growth, unlocking that geo expansion, opening a new office, or just scaling your existing team organically. Wonderful. Based on that poll, I'm curious, Dan, Christian, you guys navigate this on a daily basis and have done so quite successfully over the last 3 years. Dan shared some of the numbers on markets that he's active in with the Voda franchise network. But I'm curious if there's anything specific that you'd like to share as we're just thinking about this poll. Again, concerns about readiness to scale, finding skilled labor, availability to capital for growth, and maybe you have some tips of the trades that you might want to share, fellas.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I took the poll as well, and mine was, was centered around finding skilled labor if I was thinking of it from the lens of one of our franchise owners. But I think if we gave a survey to the 110 franchise owners in Voda, I think the majority would come back with concern about readiness to scale as well. So I'll hit on that, but I want to go through each one because only one person said available capital for growth, which absolutely can be a constraint. But I will always make the argument that there's usually another way to grow that is not always money. It may not be you can grow as fast, but I don't think money, yes, being well capitalized is important, but usually there's other ways that you can grow and scale the business without capital if you're willing to put either a little bit of elbow grease and sweat equity or some really specialized systems. When it comes to finding skilled labor, I think that my biggest realization, I've always been in business. I had a call center in my previous business, and we had about 60 call center agents in New Jersey, where I'm originally from. Not the same as home service technicians, but I do think it's a similar kind of, usually not a college degree. Usually what I found was the best call center agents that we found were people that maybe were not as focused on their career and their life even for a period of time, but perhaps in their late 20s or early 30s, they started to really take things a little more seriously. And I loved hiring those people because we were able to give them a platform and an education to be able to improve. And so I love that. I love working with people that have, maybe they made some mistakes or whatever, and being able to give people that opportunity. So I love hiring skilled labor for that reason. But what I learned in that business was we were running ads on, Indeed and whatever else. And there's a bit of a passive play to it. And one day I started to think about what happens when you go to a car showroom to buy a car. There's like a waiting room. They give you a coffee. There's videos playing. And we actually transformed part of our office into like a sales center, even though it was centered around recruiting. And what some of my team started to do is they said, let's go out. Next time I'm at a Dunkin' Donuts or a restaurant, if I find someone with a good personality, I'm going to try to persuade them to come in for an interview. And when they came in for the interview, it was a whole interview, yes, but also a sales presentation, because we realized that we were also selling a job. They were trying to find a job. We were trying to sell a job. And so what we realized was that saying, from Glenn Ross, always be closing, right? ABC. What is his name? Alec Baldwin. It really should also be ABR, always be recruiting. And I think that, yes, it's hard to find skilled labor, but when you take more of a sales proactive approach, I'm always going to go out there and try to find people and maybe persuade people. It becomes a lot easier. The last thing I'll say on that, and some may not like this, it's a little bit more aggressive. One of the things I encourage people to do is go online, look at your industry in your market, look for other companies, look for 5-star reviews. Is there a technician at one of those companies, Johnny, that keeps getting 5-star reviews so much so that the owner says, Johnny was great. You got to use Johnny. And I'm not saying go and try to poach your competitors' teammates, but you can build a relationship. And this is a great way not only to find skilled labor, but find, really strong skilled labor.
Love that. Yeah, and just for something, yes, leverage does come at a cost, and so I love the idea of elbow grease and creative business strategies to grow the business. And Dan, that's a great story about not just the interview process, but the way that you focus on employee referrals and the way that you think about the interview experience from a candidate's perspective is it's a two-way conversation. They're still learning, they're still getting educated. They're there because maybe they need to be, but they're still looking to be sold. And the fact that you acknowledge that, and you're espousing the Voda values, and Voda University and all the resources that you guys give to your franchisees it's a great approach. Love that. Wonderful. Thanks to those for taking the poll. The screen advances slowly. I may have to exit out of this actually.
While you're doing that, one of the things that Dan talks about a lot, and we talk with our owners pretty frequently about, is an owner's job, whether it's a small business, medium, or a giant corporation, the CEO or the owner of the business, one of your jobs is to be phenomenal at recruiting people. And so one of those things, as you prepare to scale, again, headcount is expensive, so you have to do it strategically. And I know we're going to talk about how to scale using numbers and data, but building out a bench. There are starters out on the field, but build a bench of people that you network with that you think are phenomenal operators, or phenomenal teammates potentially that you could bring on. And that's served us really well from a corporate perspective, but then also kind of oozing that through our owners at the franchise level too. So that's something that an owner always has to be recruiting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the recruiting hat, in the healthiest organizations I've ever been a part of, it's really worn by everybody. I mean, what's a better amazing testament to employee engagement than them being willing and excited to, work within their network to bring on talent. I think it's a great vote of confidence, and it also tells you a lot about the health of your team. Wonderful. Next topic. So tech is the enabler. It's not the strategy. And so obviously at Workiz, we're helping new clients on board every day. And they may be coming from another technology platform or the digital version of pen and paper. And automations are kind of the foundation of what Workiz has built. But this is meant to kind of be a bit evocative, and technology is not the save all. If you're in an unhealthy state in terms of your business KPIs, it's an opportunity to evaluate how well you understand the insights from your business that allow you to make good decisions. But Dan and Christian, I'd love to get your feedback on this. You guys have worked through change management, whether it's technology or otherwise, and curious to know what you've learned as you've moved towards that next stage of technology adoption, digital transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Technology is incredibly powerful. No one can deny that, especially with the emergence or the radical rise of AI. But it only amplifies what's existing in the business. So whether you're starting out or you're scaling, if your process is broken, amplifying it is just going to allow you to fail faster and then at scale. And so the real work really comes, and we went through this, building the infrastructure for Voda. And I would say it's a living and breathing thing. We're constantly innovating and tweaking our process, whether it's the actual SOPs and how it relates to technology. But the real work really is in designing the right workflow. So like how your leads are handled, how your jobs are scheduled, how your communication flows, and using that technology to execute consistently. Because like many things, the quality of what you put in very much determines the quality of your output. So we partner with our operations folks, call them technicians or owners or even our internal team, to make sure that that's mapped through so that the technology enhances and complements the human touches in our process, whether it's from the first initial inquiry into the business or follow up after a service.
Yeah, you know, I would piggyback on that. Completely agree with everything Christian said. And by the way, I'd love to, if anyone wants to put in the chat that biggest one being concerned about scaling, like what is that concern? Is it like my people aren't ready? I don't have systems. I'd love to know that because we can probably come back to it later. But you know, I was fortunate and I appreciate Workiz for having me last month to speak at your offices with some of your team. One of your teammates, I think that heads up sales, asked me a question centered around, you know, how would you get someone excited in home services about tech and about tech being an enabler? And my answer was, if you are a home service business owner and you got into this business 10 years ago, you know, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it is, before it was cool, before Wall Street Journal was writing articles in New York Times and guys like me in a suit got in the business, and I'm an entrepreneur through and through, not what I'm about to say, but before private equity got into this space. And yeah, they're great. They spend money. They've got technology. But what they don't have is they don't have that personal touch. There's no way. And the way you've won is by doing something that very few people can do. And so what I love is that if you take that emergence or that kind of intersection of a personal touch plus technology, you're undefeatable, right? It becomes an enabler of what you've already done so well. But if you've got this great personal touch and consumer experience, but you're operating on pen and paper, why not be 100% of both, right? Because at the end of the day, I think if I had to choose really great customer service and personality and all of that over tech, I'm going to choose A. But if I could have both, why not have both? Because now you're really going to dominate in your marketplace. And I think ultimately make your life and your team's lives much, much easier.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Dan. And when I hear you make that statement, we can have both today. We can have great technology that's relatively easy to implement. We can also focus on building the best teams and providing training and development to help them do their job more easily. And when those two things intersect, as you say, something really exciting happens. Obviously, the proliferation of AI has accelerated everything from a technology adoption perspective. But what I've seen that really makes me smile is that it's not about people needing to be fearful of their job. When automation and technology takes the place of all the hours throughout the day that individuals are doing redundant, repetitive tasks that can be automated, that human capital is repurposed for something, frankly, more exciting. In most cases, it has a bigger driving effect to the revenue and customer retention and the growth of the business. But it's more energizing activity. If you can remove those repetitive, redundant tasks, the employees are happier. It's a great win-win. Great. We'll get to the next slide for us. Okay, all right, Christian, this one is definitely going to kind of fall in your backyard. And I love the way we talked about this before the webinar, but marketing without operational alignment is dangerous. Tell us why it is dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, and we, obviously we're an emerging franchise, system, and whether you're a 1 unit or a 5 unit, home services, company in your market, it's when marketing works, it puts pressure and stress on operations, but it also does the same thing when marketing doesn't work. So ultimately, when you think about scaling demand, it requires scaling delivery of services at the same time. And so ultimately, marketing's job is to generate the demand, but operations has to deliver on that promise. So if the two functions aren't aligned, you end up with like a leaky bucket. Leads come in, but the business isn't structured to convert them or service them effectively. And one of the things that kind of tied to our first topic was Dan also talks about kind of this like, this phenomenon of like hidden abundance. Like everyone's like, I need more money, or I need more people, or need. Well, from a marketing perspective, one of the greatest things that a business can do is mine the leads that you have, follow up and see if that customer that you serviced 2 months ago needs another carpet cleaning or needs, another service that you provide, or reach out to them when you have a promotion throughout the year. So I think when we talk about this, it's really aligning price promotions, operations, and marketing together so that you're ready to scale the demand, but you're also ready to scale the services and the delivery of those services.
Yeah, and Christian, obviously close collaboration between marketing strategy and marketing stakeholders and operational stakeholders is critical, because you need to be talking on a weekly, if not daily basis around what is the funnel going to look like, what is seasonality going to do to impact the need for human capital, but that real-time conversation between marketing and operations is hypercritical. I know it's incredibly important for us at Workiz as well. And I didn't want to just fly over this because Ella had a great question. And Dan, I know that you responded in the chat, but let me just restate it for those that may not have seen it. And Dan, you might want to add something to this. Do you ever feel like growing meant you'd stop doing the work you enjoy? And how did you decide what size business was right for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to stand up for this one because I get passionate about this. I got my new standing desk, so just give me a second here.
Here we go.
That's a great question.
I think that, there's a book, one of my favorite books, probably ever when it comes to business, is a book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And if you like to read, it's an easy read. If you like audiobooks, the gentleman that wrote it reads it, and he's very interesting. And I think one of the highest forms of intellect is taking something complex and making it simple. And I like the fact that he's just very much a regular person in the way he speaks, but very successful. And what he explains in the book is the highest levels of business, you should be doing 100% of what your superpower is, and none of the things that you're not good at. And really, it's not even just what you're good at. It's the thing that lights you up, that gives you energy. And so I think as you grow a business, you should be doing more of that. Now, that sounds easier said than done. What I've learned is usually there are people out there that whatever you do not like doing and that you're not good at, a lot of us think that there's no one out there to do it because you can't imagine doing that job. But there's actually a whole world of people that would hate to do like a webinar like this. Some of my team, brilliant people, would be terrified to do this webinar, even though they would say amazing intellectual things. And some people would be good at it, but they don't want to do it. I personally, I love it. I love to give back. I love to teach. And so I think when you identify what you're really good at, the more the business grows, the more you should, in theory, be able to do that. Now, the only caveat is as you grow, you do get new kind of hurdles. I'll give you a personal example. Our business is at a size now where even though we have a brilliant CFO, I feel like I'm doing a lot more finance than I want to be. It's not what lights me up. In this particular moment, I'm teaching myself to enjoy it because it's kind of like what I have to do. But I know that I only have to do that for a period of time until I get back to what I love to do. But when I look back at all the different businesses I've owned, which I've been an entrepreneur for about 12 years now, a little bit more, usually the bigger the business grew, the more I eventually got to do what I liked to do.
Yeah. And just to double tap on one of the comments you made, Dan, I think it is important. I love the idea of, as an aspirational thought, spending 100% of your time and energy on your superpower, and that drives you. But fortunately, I think the strongest teams have a collection of superpowers, and this ability to work at a high level strategically, deliver and execute tactically, and use everybody's superpowers and put them in a position to be happier and allow the business to grow faster. Outstanding. Okay, next topic. So we've got scaling decisions. I think this is something we can all get behind. Scaling decisions should be made from data and dashboards and not gut feeling. Now, obviously, seasoned, tenured entrepreneurs or business leaders certainly rely on gut feeling, but it's not always 100%. So, Christian and Dan, I'd love to hear from you guys on maybe a time when you realized you were in the middle of a strategic shift and the data told you something that was surprising and it might have conflicted with your gut instinct.
This is Christian. Christian's going to run with this one.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately,
This is his world.
I'll get to a story, but I think as your business grows, the margin of error shrinks. I mean, or if you think about it early, and we did this too. We were not new to franchising. Like most of us on the team and the leadership team had been with other franchise systems. This is the 10th franchise system actually that I've been a part of in some way. So I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. I've seen like systems with 1,600 owners, and I've seen ones that started out just like us with zero, one corporate location. And ultimately, early on, owners often rely on their instinct to become, because they're close to everything. They're close to every job. They're close to every customer. But once you start scaling teams and trucks, and I say trucks because we're mobile-based business, you can't manage the business by gut feeling anymore, and so you need real-time visibility, or real-time visibility into the numbers in order to manage your business. And so one story I think about is, there tends to be a lot of emotion when you own a business. So I think data beats emotion. So owning a business naturally, especially in franchising, comes with a level of emotion due to the risk, the capital put forth. But as you scale your business, you have to scale it knowing that you're making decisions based on data, tracking conversion rates, response time, job cycle time. If you're using a caller or a call center, the conversion rates. And so I think for us, we had inflection points where we had data, but maybe we weren't communicating or mobilizing it as effectively. And when we started doing that, that really started calming the thoughts and opinions and things that were being felt through the system, but might not be backed up by data. And so one of the things we did was we sought out to really find a platform that really gave the level of marketing infrastructure or marketing analytics infrastructure. And there's a lot of tools out there, but we went the hard route and we built something called the Voda Marketing Hub, which is our own proprietary platform that brings in all that marketing data from the call center, from all of those platforms, so that our owners know where the value of their marketing is coming from. And so I think that was really something that was an inflection point for us, is like not only building that, but also communicating these channels work. They may work on a different level for every owner and every market. But that's why you have to know your numbers so we can help you adjust where things need to be adjusted.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, it's really interesting because when you think about our business, like at the end of the day, you've got our there's a brain there. When I think about the brain of the business, it's certainly not me, but when I think about the figurative brain of the business, it's our CRM, which obviously we're Workiz customers, and so Workiz is like the core of the business. Everything runs through Workiz. And then there's tremendous reporting that Workiz has. For us as a franchisor, we have to take 300 locations and roll them up and then have different things. But the central source of truth for us has been Workiz, our financial records, like QuickBooks or whatever you use, and call center data. But my story related to this would be every day. I would argue that, and a lot of you on this call are probably going to agree with this, like lead gen, necessary evil. Sucks. It's annoying. You got to pay money, you get leads, they don't answer, Thumbtack, Google, whatever. But what we have found is by using data and dashboards, we take away any sense of emotion. And so we'll have one lead source where the leads are answering and it seems like the leads are good. Another source, maybe only a third of them answer. But when you look at the data, if you're making more money from the one that the people are not answering, but they're buying, or the one that maybe they're answering and spin their wheels, which one would you go with? I know from a feeling, I'd like to talk to people all day, but at the end of the day, which one's making you money? And so what we found in our system is, us included, the corporate team didn't know this either, but some of our best sources we thought were our worst until we actually looked at the dollar for dollar, return on the ad spend.
Yeah, it's when we think about that entire funnel, and Christian, love what you had to say about the collaboration between marketing and operations, but it's not coming into it with preconceived notions. I like the ethos of holding well-informed, data-driven opinions, but holding them loosely so that you're able to learn and collaborate. And data is empirical, and I also love the fact that you guys are sharing that back with the team. A little bit of gamification, a little bit of competition, but we can't be holding that information, that knowledge. We need to be sharing it with the entire organization. We're getting close to the end. We might be able to go a few minutes over, but we have a few more topics that we wanted to hit. This next one, passionate about this for sure, but automation enables your business to scale. And as I said, automation and AI is foundationally what's helped Workiz to be so successful. And thank you for the kind words, Voda team. Love to hear that we're driving value for you guys. But when it comes to automations, are there any quick learnings from your business and your growth over the last few years that the audience might be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, just from when we started Voda, we did quite a bit of market research and really understanding customers in this space. There's a huge spectrum of services in the home services space, and the entry point into someone's home can vary due to the reason for the service. But I think when we think about automation, automation is ultimately what's going to allow your business to grow without adding chaos. And unfortunately, with the topic of automation and AI especially, it gets a bad rap. It infers like we're moving into this robotic, non-human future, which it's actually not the case. It's about, again, augmenting your processes so that as you scale, that automated review follow-up from that service you provided to Mrs. Smith yesterday is an automated review request versus you manually, which you probably started in the beginning of your business sending that manually. And so what some of the biggest things that have allowed us to kind of free up our team from a marketing standpoint is text and email communications throughout the sales and service process, and then also the follow-up. And then shout out to Workiz, but one of the things that a lot of our owners leverage is the call flows within Workiz calling. The ability to set up call trees has been a huge benefit. Every configuration is a little different in some way, but it's tailored to their business. And guess what? It's aligned with their operations, which is based on our overall systems SOPs, but it might have a little bit of flavor depending on the owner.
Awesome. Love that. One last topic that I definitely wanted to hit real quick because it is important, and I think it informs the entire discussion. We've talked about how within Voda, you're intently listening to your franchise owners, but really it's the customer pain points, the end user. Some of the information you get through reviews, but a lot of it's just happening in real time in the field. Curious to know what interesting learnings Voda has uncovered just in terms of real connections to the end user and how you are working every day to equip your team to solve those pain points and to focus on them and to know where to look.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just at a training with some of our franchise owners, and we had a Sandler sales training session, which I love. And I'm a lifelong learner. I love to study and learn things. And so I was in the Sandler training, and he went around and he asked everyone, why should the customer choose Voda? And we're all like, quality service, answer the phone quick, automations, whatever. And he wrote like wrong. All of it was wrong. And the answer was the customer should choose Voda. You don't know why until you know what they need. The whole idea of like selling is all about prescribing, like a doctor. You first figure out what someone needs and then you provide the solution. And so I think as I get older, I've learned this more and more that almost any interaction with anyone, if you could just take yourself out of the shoes of yourself and put your shoes on their feet or their shoes on your feet, they at our core are thinking what's in it for me, or how can this help me, and remembering that everything is about how to help them. A really good example is sometimes when you're talking to a customer, you might think a certain thing they have going on is a pain point, but that's maybe your own biases or your own needs and standards, and what they're going through may not be a pain point. So I'll give you a great example. Some of our technicians do this, which we always say, don't sell from your own wallet. meaning that if you go to someone's home and you see an opportunity where there's an opportunity to help them, and you find a pain point and you provide a solution, maybe that solution to you is an expensive solution, but to that homeowner, it may not be at all. And so you shouldn't be selling from your wallet. You should be selling from, you don't know their pain point. That $1,000 ticket for that homeowner may not be a pain point at all. The pain point might actually be time. They don't want it to take too long. And you're selling on money when it's actually about time. And so understanding the consumer or the customer's actual pain point, I think is like 95% of selling, and probably 90% of your business succeeding as far as the revenue perspective.
Yeah, absolutely love that. So the next level of active listening, and then also don't bring your own biases into the conversation, because that client may have a completely different perspective. We don't know what people are going through every day, but leave your biases and your ego at the door and actively listen. Amazing. One quick note before we wrap up, for those that are maybe a little less familiar with Workiz, some of the questions that I've asked Dan and Christian today, we ask our clients on an ongoing basis, and we warehouse some of these little gems and talk of the trades. And so available on our website. But this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. As promised, for those that are still on, if you have other questions, and I'll go back to chat to make sure I haven't missed anything, but feel free to post them now, and we'll do our best to respond quickly. And if we can't get all the questions answered, we can certainly share after the recording. Just checking the chat. From Ella, we've got, what KPIs do you look at to confirm that a business is healthy and ready to scale? What's the litmus test for readiness?
Yeah, I'll start. To me, KPIs, we all use the term. What does it mean? Key performance indicators. I have my own acronym, which is TIF, which stands for the important few. And so if you really want to think of it, it's like the important few, key performance indicators, which should be like 4 numbers. For us, first thing that, and it depends on the industry, we're in the cleaning and restoration, you might be in plumbing or roofing or something, but probably similar. For us, number 1 is on-time report, right? If you're not on time for jobs, this is a huge issue. How do you become on time for jobs? Starts with the first job. So do we get our crew out to the first job on time and then stay on schedule? We look at a capacity management. Are we able to book a job and do it within a relative time frame, that we're not overstaffed? From a sales perspective, we look at cost of lead and cost of job, like customer acquisition. And then we look at conversion rate on the phone, and then as well as in the home. What is our sales conversion rate? Those are kind of all one bucket, that part. So on time, capacity is one bucket. Another bucket is conversion, cost of lead, everything related to getting a customer. And then average ticket is the next bucket. What is our average ticket? What is our lifetime value? What is our repeat business that we're getting? And then finally, the lagging indicator, and there's others, but the lagging indicator is obviously looking at the revenue in and the money out. To me, when you're ready to scale, your metrics on those 3 are hitting where they need to be. I'll go to Christian first, because I maybe you have the answer to the litmus test. I don't know.
I have some thoughts. Obviously, selfishly, mine are kind of centered around the marketing. I think, Dan, like the high level ones, like absolutely. I think those are also indicator, or like KPIs that somebody would look at if they're looking to either acquire or invest in someone's business too. I think from the marketing side, lead to booking rate, I think is definitely important to look at. From a marketing expenditure standpoint, your cost per lead and cost per book job. So when you look at those things, that's really where you can understand, do you have predictable CPLs and profitable customer acquisition? Obviously, average ticket value. And then customer reviews and reputation. I mean, strong brands typically have 4.6 to 4.8 or plus Google reviews. And then your marketing ROI. Are you consistently spending on marketing and getting a 3, 4, 5x or higher return as a healthy signal? But ultimately, the litmus test when I think about this is if you were to ask yourself this, if I doubled my leads tomorrow, could my business handle it well? That's what I think about. Like, if I doubled down on all the things marketing and I had double the leads, keeping everything constant, could I keep all of those numbers consistent, or would everything fall apart because there's too many leaks and now I have a flood coming in?
Right.
No pun
If you own
intended, since water damage restoration.
No, that was punny and well timed, Christian. I actually like that quite a bit. Yeah, and it's dependent on the breadth and the depth and accuracy of your data on the operational side, telling you whether you could actually ingest that double investment in marketing. So amazing. Dan, I'd love to pass it back to you for any final words. We're at time, but before I do, incredibly appreciative to the Voda team and to those that helped prepare for this webinar. We were privileged to celebrate success with you, but thank you guys so much. Your time is valuable, and we really appreciate that you spent some of it with us today and with the audience that joined. But Dan, Christian, passing it back to you for any final thoughts.
No, appreciate you as well. We very much value our relationship with Workiz. It's been a great relationship. I think any good relationship with your technology or whatever suppliers that you work with, partners that you work with, is about, you guys do a great job at that. I've found that you listen and hear what we need and adjust and work really well. So we're very appreciative. If you're on the webinar and this is helpful, I love connecting with people just for the sake of being connected on LinkedIn. If it's okay, I'll just put my LinkedIn in the chat in case anybody wants to be LinkedIn friends.
Wonderful. Glad you did that.
One thing I could leave everybody with is, great businesses started on hustle alone, but great businesses that scale and become bigger businesses are the ones that are built on systems. So like aligning your marketing, operations, technology, data, that growth becomes much more predictable and much less stressful. When we were talking about data is the best medicine against anxiety. When you don't have data, it produces anxiety and worry and chaos for a business owner. And so, and sometimes it's harder than other times to get the data that you need, but it is worth it to have the right, systems and tools and analytics platforms so that you can know and you can manage, the things that need to be managed. And if you don't have that data in near real time, you can't fix it in real time.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you to the audience. Obviously, once again, Dan and Christian, thank you for helping us tackle some of these big, hairy topics and share some learnings as it relates to getting through that danger zone, using data to drive good business decisions that allow for scaling to be both healthy and profitable. But again, huge thank you for your time, and to the rest of the attendees. Have an amazing rest of your week, and we really appreciate your engagement through the webinar today.